On today's show, it's a viewers' questions special. You've got questions, we've got answers.
And this is 30-Minute Music Marketing.
30-Minute Music Marketing. For musicians who want to get better at marketing their music.
Hi, I'm Greg.
Hello, I'm Sheldon, and this is 30-Minute Music Marketing, the show for independent artists and DIY musicians who want to get better at marketing their music. Thanks very much for watching this on the YouTubes or the Facebooks, or listening to it
Spotify.
as you go about your business, do the ironing, do the hoovering, perhaps, or you might even be in your car. Please remember to indicate as you,
especially those in BMW,
as you consume our content. Now, people get better at marketing their music by asking questions, and we always say that people should ask us questions, and we've had a raft, a complete wodge, as we say in the northwest of England, of questions submitted by David Osborne. He's a music technology student in and around the locale, which is where we are based, in sunny St Helens.
Hello, David Osborne.
Hello, David. These questions, I think, are absolute gold, and he submitted quite a few of them, but that's all right. So what we're going to do is we're going to devote an entire episode to your questions, David, because I think a lot of the things that he's asking us are going to be relevant for a lot of the people who are listening to or watching the show, and it's all about... David's a very young artist who's sort of, making his way, his first tentative tiptoes into the world of DIY musicianing. So I just think by answering his questions, I think we'll be giving a lot of useful information to a lot of our listeners and viewers out there.
You. Right, shall I start?
You start. You can be the question master.
Okay,
Greg.
question master. I will be inputting feedback where necessary.
Okay, again, you can chip in, old Greg, old chum.
So, right, question number one. What are the best methods available right now for an artist just starting out that will help them to make their first initial fans outside of their own friendship groups, social media contacts? And remember, friends aren't fans.
That's a good hashtag. Friends aren't fans. That's a good one. That. So, as a artist or musician, you need fans. Another word for fans is an audience. So, if you're trying to gain an audience, the easiest way to do that is to tap into someone else's audience. And if you think about traditional forms of music exposure, if your song is played on radio has an audience, and if your song gets played on the radio, your music is exposed to that audience, and that's one way of siphoning their audience into becoming your audience. It's perhaps a little inefficient, but that's sort of that's basically sort of how it goes. So the people in this day and age who have the audiences and the attention of people are primarily social networks. Your Facebooks, your Instagrams, your Snapchats, your TikToks. So it's all about utilising those platforms and trying to siphon and get the attention of people on those audiences to try and move them over to your little part of those social networks. So two easy things to do. So to run some form of advert on something like, David does hip-hop. So I think the easiest social network that will tick a hip-hop box and which has a good ad product is probably going to be Instagram in terms of demographic and the ability to advertise easily on that platform.
Okay.
Is Instagram. So for David, what I would do
Could we possibly, because I know we've gone into the Facebook ad campaigns and stuff like that, do you think it might be worth us looking at doing something similar on Instagram? At some point in the future?
Quite possibly. But right, for him, if David's young and he's doing hip-hop, young Facebook doesn't really scan. So, Instagram, run paid...
What about Snapchat?
I'm not too sure about the ad product.
What about TikTok?
Again, I'm not too sure about the...
We'll stick with Instagram.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Right, let me get my bit out, Greg,
all right, okay.
And then you can do it. Right, so, for in terms of Instagram, right, so get your best song, get some sort of video content, so in other words, some form of a video for it. And for as little as £1 a day, Greg, £1 a day, you can run Instagram story adverts on using that music, that video, and then you can either direct people to your Spotify profile, perhaps, just trying to get people to follow you on there or play your music on there, or you could get them just to check out your Instagram bio. So in other words, keep them on the platform rather than trying to send them somewhere else. There's pros and cons of both. We haven't really got the time to go into that.
Would you kind of say, do you think BBC Introducing is still an outlet?
It is, but it's what I'm saying is if you're trying to grow your audience and find a way of retaining and keeping that audience.
Yeah.
I was recently played on national radio. My social media audience barely moved. And so, in other words, there was probably hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of people who heard that song.
Yes.
Did they get off their backside?
Did it have
and check us out?
any influence over? No.
The live performance that we didn't increase our social numbers whatsoever.
Really?
Yeah.
Mad,
And so, in other words, I've got no way of reaching out to those people on radio.
No, that's a good point.
So that's one of the disadvantages. If you send somebody over to Spotify, yeah, they might play your song, but they might play it once, and then it's like, oh, they've gone now. How do you get them back?
Yeah.
So if you get them to follow you on Instagram, then that's a form of permission marketing, and you can maybe contact them again, either organically or through paid traffic again on that sort of platform. So again, those are the pros and cons.
And
of
really,
both.
no one can moan about spending £1 a day.
Pound a day, eat right. So in other words,
Please say, prove me wrong. Is £1 a day really that too much?
even if, it's to be honest, if you're a student at 18, 17, that might be a bit. If you get £2 for your lunch, goes to Pound Bakery. With the pound that you save, that goes into your Instagram advert pot. There are ways and means of doing this
Compromise.
sort of thing. Right. So, and if you're cash strapped, right, if you've got absolutely no money whatsoever to run ads, my mate Gary V,
Yep.
he has what he refers to as his $1.80 strategy. So he says, leave a comment or my 2 cents, as people refer to, as in
I see
do
where
that
this is
on
going.
9 posts
Yep.
over 10 related hashtags. So in
Yeah.
other words, what are the 10 most relevant hashtags that are relevant to your music and your genre of music? So do that on 9 posts over 10 hashtags every day. 2 cents times 9 times 10 is 180. So in other words, you've got to put. I was saying this to Midnight at 6, another one of our hot viewers.
Okay.
And they're saying that building an audience either takes time or it takes money. So if you've got the time and you've got no money, do it the hard way.
Yeah.
People like me, I've got absolutely no time whatsoever, so I will run ads, and I will use money in order to acquire an audience.
So there you go. So you really have no excuses.
And we will put in the show notes details with regards
I'm only doing this so I know where to put the details.
Gary V's. Well, no, you can do it in the text show notes rather than a visual overlay, Greg. Just telling you how to do your job there.
Thank you. It does help.
That's quite all right.
So there you go. I hope, David, that has helped. Question number one. Right, so number 2. As an artist, I have just released a lot of material, including an album, an EP, and 2 singles.
That's a lot, Greg.
It is. And I'm wary of putting too much out there too quickly. Is radio silence a good thing to carry out right now? And if so, what's the ideal time to end the silence?
So, yes, I think you've almost potentially realised your error here, David. There's a lot of catalogue and not a lot of people to listen to it. So I think you are right in order to take a step back, and what you've got to do now is, in terms of that catalogue of material that you've got to concentrate on marketing those.
But it's like you were saying last year, in terms of how much new material did you actually create last year?
Just one track, which was a
Christmas one, wasn't it?
Actually, yes, that's 2 tracks. One was a remix, one was a cover. I didn't write any new songs.
So literally all of your material last year of informing people about you was not new material.
No, it was old
It was
material.
just possibly new ways of telling people about old material.
Yeah. More effective, less exhausting.
So
as
yeah.
well.
So I mean, I see this a lot. So we've made an EP, we've put that out there. Nobody's really engaged with it. What do we need to do? We need to make some more new material that no one's going to listen to.
It's a vicious circle. So what I would do is, right out of all the material that you've got, David, how about identifying what you think are the 3 best tracks on there, and identify a marketing plan, almost as if they were being released as singles, because the thing is that nobody knows exactly. If you stumble across a piece of music on social networks, you don't know whether it's been released that week or.
Well, that's the thing. New fans or new audiences aren't going to know anything about what you did with this before because they're new. So I think you get a lot of people going, oh, I don't want to kind of redo stuff. People will be bored of it. And it's like, well, no, because you're trying to aim for new people who've never heard it.
Exactly.
So there you go. That's question number 2.
So yeah, but only he does say when's the ideal time to end the silence. So what I would do is
Now.
I meant as in
Oh, go on.
to stop. David's saying, right, if I'm stopping making new music and concentrating on marketing,
Yes.
when do I actually kick off again? Potentially, how long's a piece of string?
why
But
it's
if you leave a reasonable amount of time, so in other words, if you create a marketing plan in order to effectively promote and market those 3 pieces of music, maybe.
Well, couldn't you gauge it? Say, for example, you got stuff on YouTube and you're kind of going, right, I'm going to do some marketing of this old material and I'm going to try and climb to like 5,000 views. Get 5,000 views, then that might be the time to work on something new
That's one way.
Because you now you have a bit of an audience who will be possibly wanting something new from you.
Or you could go, right, 6 months or 5,000 views or 5,000 plays or streams on one of those sort of 3 singles, and then it's the time to crack on. So yeah, you could do it either or. Very good idea.
At least that way it's quantifiable. Sorry, Tom. So, I hope even I've been of some help there.
Well done, Greg, well
Thanks,
done. Go to the top of the class.
I do like to surprise myself. Right, so question number 3. Right, what are the best types of suggested content that don't necessarily promote and sell my music, but are appropriate for, in this case, a hip-hop stroke rap artist?
Can I just shock you, Greg? It's about 30 years since I last listened to any
That doesn't
rap.
shock me in the slightest.
Okay. The people who've only ever listened to us on the podcast will be thinking, oh, he sounds a lot younger than that. Right, so.
Wasn't it the last thing you listened to?
I haven't exactly got my
MCs?
finger on the pulse when it
rap
comes to this
pulse.
sort of thing. So what I would say is, in terms of the artists that you like, both maybe megastars and maybe somebody who's a little bit less down the superstar food chain, as it were. First, right, do some research. What are they doing that you think is good? What are the themes around the music and the type of music that you're making? Are those themes things that you can make content about yourself?
Can I actually, because ironically, I do actually work with a couple of hip-hop artists.
Oh, right, here we go.
And, all right, most of them aren't necessarily straight English hip-hop artists. I've worked with American, French, and at the moment, Nigerian. So doing a lot of stuff with Afro flavour and dancehall and stuff like that. And one thing that this artist has been doing is obviously scrolling through Tinterweb. I don't know whether I should be recommending this. You correct me if I'm wrong otherwise, but basically going through YouTube, finding videos of, like, usually there seems to be a lot of people like dancing to the stuff of this style of music. So he'll rip the video off YouTube, and because the beats are quite similar, we'll end up putting his music over the top of that and repost it. But at least what he's doing is he's actually including within the description the people who are in the video. And that way it's shared, and we've been kind of getting like 14,000 views on some of this. Or the other way is to do just a green screen video, lip sync video, and doing it that way. Seems to like this.
So what I would say is maybe create content around stuff that means a lot to you as a person, as a musician, as an artist. Brian May is the example I always give here, and he's a friend of the badgers, friend of the wildlife, so he's forever badgering people on his social networks about his commitment to wildlife. I would say create content around your genre, and so
I suppose that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, if you're into hip hop, right? So what are your favourite top 10 hip hop albums of all time? So every Monday could be, right, well, here's me talking about whichever Dr. Dre album is your favourite, and telling people why.
Would it be, in some ways, kind of talk about the well-known names, but also kind of go a bit left field and kind of talk about other people that wouldn't necessarily be, someone that you'd immediately thought of? Kind of expand your knowledge on your own genre so you can talk about more things.
Yeah. So basically, try and identify maybe with potentially whatever resonates with your audience, and it may well be that you're throwing out loads of stuff and trying different things on a weekly or a fortnightly basis, and there'll be something there that really catches fire. And again, potentially not even necessarily with your own audience. It could well be that you reach other people. If you're sticking out something on YouTube and you got the right tags in there, it may well be that you find other fans who are finding you because of the content marketing that you make, not necessarily.
Could you do a live Facebook video and basically encourage people to actually contribute lyrics, and then you write a song live?
No, we're not writing any songs, not for another 6 months.
Okay.
Well, we could do that, and of course there's the classic behind the scenes in terms of all the stuff that goes into.
Do some tutorial
music.
videos. If you're making beats, that's what I've actually started doing recently. Actually, you'll appreciate this.
Carry on.
I was using Break Tweaker, which is that, and did this on Instagram. I was just doing a little thing on sidechain compression. It's quite a popular technique for certain electronic people, and tagged BT in it, and he liked it.
Right. Whoever had BT on the Greg's BT lottery bingo drinking game.
But the point is that ultimately, if you are going to use Instagram, do like a 30-second, 60-second video, tag the brands of equipment that you've used, and that will get you. You're not trying to appeal to the manufacturers. You're just using their brand awareness to hopefully share your brand awareness to a bigger fan base, and it does work. So question 4. So I hope that answered question 3. Right, so number 4. Where are the best places to learn about music marketing, and where is it heading in the future? So
the best place to learn about music marketing here.
Subscribe.
I had that down here, so well done for getting it.
I didn't even read that.
My favourite marketer is Gary Vaynerchuk, good old Gary V.
Simply because love that guy. You go on about him as much as I go on about BT.
That he puts out every day, and Gary V will basically give you a kick up the arse and just say you need to do.
Oh, he will tell you as he sees it, which I admire the guy for that. Right, he's like, no one's going to do you any favours.
Right, so I've got some reading suggestions. Gary Vaynerchuk's book, Crushing It. That will basically give you an overview as to how you should be using social networks.
Is that available as a free PDF online?
No, it's a book.
Is it not available online?
No.
Some of these people, they don't even watch.
Get it as a Kindle.
Okay, that's right.
What do you want?
I'm just talking about the audience.
I would recommend that everyone listen to the show, get a copy of Ari Herstan's How to Make It in the New Music Business. The second edition is out now. This is the first edition. I need to get around to getting the second one.
Can I add that to my library when you do get the second one?
Yes, of course you can.
Thank you.
And I would also say that anyone who's trying to build a fan base and then monetize that fan base, Amanda Palmer's The Art of Asking is absolutely fantastic as to how to build a community of people around your music who really care for you as an artist and who will not only be there for you, but also will be willing to put their hand into their pocket and fund what you do.
There's another thing that I'm just going to because it emphasises YouTube.
We'll put those in the show notes as well, by the way.
Well, YouTube, you can learn anything, but you were kind of like you were talking about the new Adam Sandler film that's on Netflix that we both think is really, really good. But you were kind of going, the guy who did the soundtrack, and he'd used a Moog or a Moog synthesizer, and Moog themselves had put a video on it, the composer talking about the music. So ultimately, Sheldon was able to learn what they'd used because you found it quite interesting, and and it's mostly one synthesizer. But the point is that for most things, you can learn a lot of stuff online, but it is for you to, filter out the good stuff and the bad stuff.
Yes, that was just classic content marketing. Episode 18 of this show, we discussed the best free music marketing tools, and we discussed our favourite music marketing podcasts there. So if you go to episode 17, in terms of our back catalogue, you can get some tips and advice as to the best free stuff. Where's it all headed? It's all about platforms. It's been social media platforms for about the past 15 years. Now, the platforms change. I think that marketing involves going where people are gathered, where existing audiences have congregated. So that is social networks. People, are there in their hundreds of millions or billions. So as we are small DIY artists, it will be a case of going where people are, trying to utilise those networks and bring yourself to the attention of other people where people's attention is being congregated.
So in terms of, we're kind of having a bit of a retro trip in terms of music format, so suddenly cassettes coming back in for some reason.
Vinyl's big. We're talking about album releases next week, Greg.
Okay. Are we going to have a similar trend with marketing? Are we going to go back to leaflets?
Exit flyering can still be incredibly popular. There's a time and a place for lots of things.
So there you go. I hope that's answered question number, was it 4?
Was it 4? Was it 5? Who knows?
Anyway, so we have discussed this in the past, but we'll go again on this one. How much time should I devote to music marketing each week?
As much as you possibly can. I would say recommend a minimum of an hour, the equivalent of an hour a day. However, if you're doing Gary V's $1.80 strategy, I would say that's probably going to take you an hour a day in itself. But the thing we always say, Greg, is there's no point spending like 2 hours a day making music if at the end of the day no one gets to hear it. So you have to have a balance and a compromise. But if you were to do an hour a day, that's 7 hours a week, which is almost the equivalent of working 1 day a week at marketing your music. So I think that's a fair enough.
I think that's the thing. It's almost a bit like in terms of if we take. I mean, if, in this case, David, you're probably mixing your records as you go along, or your beats as you. And in that respect, it's almost like the same. You are effectively going to be marketing as you go along in all aspects, because people want to see the behind the scenes stuff. It is, a continuous even journey, isn't it? So in that respect, I mean, and this is one thing that I'm starting to do a lot more. It is just every day doing some posts, doing some 30-second videos, some 60-second videos, and if you kind of get into a routine, you're probably within a couple of weeks of just doing that kind of stuff, it will almost become second nature.
It becomes part of the process.
Yeah, and that way then people won't even be having to ask the question, how much time should I devote? Because it'll be part of the creative process as much as you are actually sitting down playing with your instrument.
Yeah. Well, Mrs.
So there you go. Hope that's answered that one.
Okay.
Okay, question number 6. Is it 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
You can always just say next question.
Next question, right. What are the best ways for keeping track on and documenting music marketing?
Right, well, we have sort of covered this before, but it can be as simple as a notepad on your phone, even in something like Google Docs, and you can have short, medium, and long term. What do you need to do today? What do you need to do this week?
Did you do your
this
yearly
month?
planner the other week?
Yes, we had. In fact, did I leave that yearly
I think
planner?
you did leave it here.
Oh, right.
I'm
well,
waiting to put it on a wall.
Well, and say you can put it on the wall here because I couldn't find it at home, so I had to go out and buy another one.
Sorry.
You can use management apps such as Wunderlist or Asana is something that a lot of people like. Both of those are free at a very basic level. You could just have a spreadsheet, use something like Google Sheets, and you could even use a spreadsheet for something like how many plays certain tracks have accumulated over time, that sort of thing. Although it can be a little bit risky, you can sometimes get caught up too much in what is referred to as vanity metrics as to how many Facebook likes.
Which then almost kind of goes down to the path of what we were talking about last week, when you're comparing yourself to major artists.
Yeah.
If all you're looking at is the figures, it probably can get a bit demoralising.
Yeah, and you can have 10,000 Instagram or Facebook followers, and none of those are actually real fans, as it were.
So I hope that's answered that question. So the next question. How do I use information from my Spotify for Artists account to market future releases and my brand in general?
What a good question.
It is a good question.
It is a good question. Unfortunately, disappointingly, there's absolutely there isn't really a great deal that Spotify for Artists can give you. What you can get is demographic data, so you can find out the gender and age of your audience, and you can maybe compare that with some of the demographic data you might get from other social platforms to build up a profile or persona of your ideal fan. You can get their location data in terms of cities and towns, and you can find out maybe where your audience is, and again you can cross-reference that with other. I wouldn't necessarily go exclusively off that, because according to I was checking this as I was compiling my notes, according to my Spotify for Artists profile, Birmingham is my third biggest audience in the country, and that isn't right. I wish all those people from Birmingham were coming to our Birmingham show in April.
Yeah, that's a little misleading, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah. So I wouldn't necessarily go exclusively off that. Cross-reference it with the data that you might get from other social platforms. I think the best thing you can get is it'll tell you if you've got tracks that are included on playlists, both algorithmic and user-generated. What you can potentially do is, if somebody's created a playlist with your music in it, you can see who those people are, and you can maybe try and find those depending on their Spotify username. You can see whether that username exists maybe on Instagram or on Twitter or something, or maybe as a blog somewhere on the internet, and you might be able to do a little bit of research, hit them up and go, oh, I see you like my my particular music. Do a bit of get a bit of a relationship going, and say, oh, if you like this one so much, I've got a new one coming out in a couple of weeks, and just try and build a stronger relationship with the people who are actually consuming your music. And if they are taste makers, as in people who are creating playlists that are getting you a lot of plays, that's a relationship that you ideally need to be strengthening and working on.
So I
That's the answer to that one.
hope that's answered that
But
one.
yeah, other than it'd be great if Spotify would allow you to message the people that were listening to your music or the people who followed you on that particular platform, but they don't. Cheers, Spotify.
But they have account. You have to have an account to use Spotify, don't you?
Yes.
So effectively, they already being able to implement the listener to the track. You wouldn't think would be. Well, like you say, it sounds easy, but it could be absolutely logistic nightmare.
Spotify are creating ad products all the time, and what I think will happen is eventually they'll go, oh, you'll be able to message your followers, but guess what? It's going to cost you money. It's going to cost you money.
So, right, next question. Should I continue to market old music that I am not so proud of anymore? And will the fact that it's still available affect the success of future releases?
Oh, right. So we've sort of
Interesting
covered
question.
the old music, new music things sort of slightly earlier on in this episode. Again, something that might be old to you. If somebody hasn't heard it, it's going to be new to them, so don't worry too much about that. As for...
And also, any new music is always going to seem better than the last piece of music.
That's just human nature, and the novelty and newness and the freshness of something, making it almost seem better than the old stuff. Stuff that you're not necessarily so proud of anymore. The one thing I will say is that your music has to be competitive. If you're putting your music out for digital distribution to go on Apple Music and on Spotify, it's in some respects has got to stand up with everything else that's out there. I mean, obviously, the people out there are going to be listening to this show all make music, and I'm not necessarily saying that your music has to sound as though it's been recorded in Abbey Road and mixed by some of the best mixers in the world. But it's got to, in some respects, it's got to hold its own. If it's in a playlist with your contemporaries, it's got to sonically,
That's the
musically,
thing. If you went to
stand on its own two feet.
Football, major like Liverpool football stadium, and just saw a load of people who've never played football before you'd be a bit, I'm not coming here again.
Yeah, and so if algorithmically your track's placed on a playlist and someone goes, I'm not quite sure about this, then you maybe have to reflect.
You want it to stand out for the right reasons.
Yes. So the thing that I've done over the years is, if there's something I've particularly liked in terms of a song, and I've done it once, and even if I've released it, there's absolutely no harm in at some point in the future doing it again and trying to do it better, either in whatever way, shape, or form.
Didn't you do a video of a song recently that you haven't done for ages? Or you did a song years ago and it's only recently that you did a video for it? What was it?
I've absolutely no idea what you're talking about. I'm sure you're right. But right, our most famous song it's annoying in the fact that when we first recorded it, we recorded it in a very much a half-hearted effort, and it's our most most played song on Spotify, and whenever radio play it, they always play the rubbish version. And I've subsequently re-recorded it again and again over the years, trying to get it better. A little bit George Lucas, a little bit like constantly tinkering with Star Wars.
Yeah.
But yeah, so don't be afraid if you think, all right, this particular song's good, I didn't execute it as well as I could have done, don't be afraid of maybe even.
I mean, come on, how many major artists do we see a remastered version or
and that is obviously it's a way of generating revenue, but it's also a way of trying to improve on what went before. So don't be afraid of, if you think something is particularly good, but you could do it better now, of somehow remixing it, re-recording it, and putting it out. Repackaging. As for stuff that you don't think is necessarily up to scratch, well, the first thing we have to remember is, like I was saying in that particular instance with the track from my back catalogue, is you might not think it's great, but your audience might do.
I mean, do you think Disney are really going to be that bothered that no one likes the Phantom Menace? They're still going to re-release that
and that's not to say that you should necessarily delete everything and constantly trying to improve on something. It may well be that you just leave it there and you just create the new remixes, as it were. You can archive stuff to SoundCloud, so it's not necessarily available for streaming, but it's still available for your fans.
Didn't we know someone who their idea was to pull all their music off every new platform, keep the band name the same, and then start again?
Yes.
And it's just like, so now you've just basically removed all the audience that you built up just because you've decided to have a change of music direction.
Yeah. So I would say, if you think you can do something better, there's absolutely, you can just call it a remix of the brackets 2020 version or 2021 if you're...
or just rename that one Demo and put... So there you go. So yeah, don't be afraid and don't be ashamed of old stuff, because some people may still like it.
Yes. And the last question, Greg.
And finally, how will current music marketing tools develop in the next 5 years, 10 years, and even 20 yees?
Is this an assignment question, do you reckon?
I don't know. I don't even know if I'm going to be here in 20 years.
Who knows? I think we've almost sort of covered this with one of our earlier answers. It's marketing is all about getting people's attention. So you have to go where people's attention are. And in terms of the way society is now, those are dominated around handful, half a dozen social networking sites.
I mean, if you think about it, I dug out an old CD that came out about 23 years ago, and inside was the card that said, join our mailing list. And then you had to, as a listener, pay to put a stamp on it, fill it out and send it back. And you're kind of going, in 20 years ago, that was seemed, perfectly normal thing to do. And then, you were having the cost as a band to print all that out, hope people would send it, then have to kind of go through it and stuff like that. And I don't think any of us could have said 20 odd years ago that social media would have been created and have the tool that it gives you. So to kind of go another 20 years from now, who knows?
Who knows? So social media, whichever forms are around at that particular point in time, they will still play a part. But what will also play a part, and has been evident right from the start, I've got down here your website, which is your headquarters. It's property and land that you own. Yeah. It's home base. It's where everybody can go if they need to know anything about you, whether it be gig dates, information, all that sort of thing. It's your headquarters, and you also need a way for you to contact your fans directly without those pesky social networks getting in the way and obviously wanting money.
Just remember what happened to MySpace.
And that is, referring back to what you said before there, that's a mailing list.
Yeah.
So if you start accumulating fan emails over the years, you've got a means and a way to easily contact your audience without anybody else.
Well, that's the thing, because ultimately, something will inevitably replace Facebook at some point.
Or Facebook will be broken up by some sort of federal committee because it's got too much power.
Are you wanting to have to restart that momentum again? At least if you've got a mailing list from your website, you can just, encourage those people to connect with you on that new form of social media.
Yes, indeed. Right, so that's that. Thank you for those questions, David. If I've got a big wodge, call it #wodge of questions that you want us to give our thoughts and opinions and answers on, please get in contact with the show. Message us on any one of our social media channels.
Do we need to stop putting our own Twitter feed or Instagram stuff? Because I've seen that in a lot of videos.
We can stick your... you don't go on Twitter, do you?
No. Maybe I do need
to... Brilliant. So
I will go on Twitter, yeah. But
what's he like?
I know, but hang on. So, please subscribe. Hit the subscribe, smash that bell, whatever.
Leave a comment underneath wherever this video
Share
is.
it with your friends.
In the next episode, we'll be talking about album releases and how to execute those in the year of our Lord 2020.
Anyway,
So if you're releasing an album soon, or you're thinking of going to be releasing an album, lots of things to think about and various different ways to do it depending on where you are in your artist career.
So hashtag Music Marketing Mondays. Have a good week.
As long as you sent it to me on Monday.
Yes, you were ill last week. And we will see you same time, same place next week.
Cheers, thanks for watching and listening. Ta-da!